Brian, I want to ask you a question about something.
Sure.
So I've been watching a lot of videos of people with like maker spaces and stuff. And there's a
Right.
lot of like instructional, tutorial type videos. And it feels to me like there's an element of social media presence in those videos that's like necessary for the public figure, the artist, whoever they are, that is a little more like it feels a little less self-promotion-y than it would with music or something like that.
I think some of that's kind of socially constructed because I
Yeah.
think musicians get the kind of short end of the stick with promotion because I think there are so many musicians and so many songwriters, and that isn't a bad thing. But, there's a certain type of romanticism and tradition and old, timelessness you get from saying, I'm an oil painter or I'm a marble sculptor or something that gives you a kind of false and unwarranted supremacy over somebody that says, I'm an acoustic singer songwriter or I make beats or follow my Twitter. Like those people are kind of being treated unfairly and are being bastardized when they are just a DIY creator, just like somebody with an art studio. You know what I mean? So I think that's just fine art successfully marketing itself, because I think it kind of gets into a more interesting question where fine art, and especially in a place like Boston or Massachusetts, where our fine art world is museums, it's colleges, it's MIT, it's Mass Art, like, or even RISD or Providence. And like, you need to kind of indenture yourself to one of those institutions in order to be a working artist in the city versus like, it's kind of unsustainable to be a DIY artist. So with fine art, there's this like kind of white column pillar marble strength, institutional strength that art is given that music is not. So
yeah, I really like that point, and I would say I would add on to that like Boston has I think has many of those institutions for visual arts, and then only kind of has Berkeley and New England Conservatory,
right?
Maybe Longy, so like only a couple of those things, like sort of white pillar institutions, ivory tower type shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's like, because here's another thing too, the branding with artists and with musicians is different too, because think about how if you start a band, you typically will name it something cool. It will have a moniker or some type of whatever name, the Banshees. And then when you have an art enterprise, a fine art enterprise, it's the Pucker Gallery, like the McDermott Studio or something, or it's Sterling Ruby Studios or the Institute of Contemporary Art. It's like, so, and that's not music's fault, but there is like, it's literally, I think it's just fucking art marketing itself to seem more important. Well, music as a people's medium and as anything made by a group of people, just like folk music, is something that is kind of proletariat in nature. So it's kind of, like Prateek said, does not have the same institutional support that fine art has. And it's just seen as, it's almost like lowbrow in some way. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So to answer the question, I guess in a more simplified way, I think maker spaces, art videos, and in the self promotion, it definitely does seem more elegant with art. But
sure,
I think that's at the expense of kind of alienating other creators that aren't in that world.
Huh.
Do you think it differs too, though, because of the emphasis on like the physical product that's made? Like, think about like if you were a band and every time you did anything, you made an album and that album existed. Like if you're a maker, you can see the marketing almost takes a backseat to like if that person's a really goddamn good woodworker, you can just see that. Like their Facebook could be dog shit, but as long as you can see like, oh wow, they can really make a chair or something, they kind of maintain credibility. Whereas a band, there's like that suspension of disbelief where like if their marketing is shit, their shows could be amazing, but no one's ever going to get that far.
Yeah, and that's a really, really interesting point, because what do you do when you make an album or you make a beautiful performance? You either film it, you record it, and then you commodify it. And with a successful artist, like if you are a successful artist in the sense that you've sold millions of prints and paintings and all this, you might be a great artist, but you're also a very, very good product creator. Like, you know how to make a product where it's framed nicely, you can hold it, it's safe, it's marked. You know what I mean? Like, you're just like, I don't know. Like, have you guys ever been to like Cape Cod art galleries where like there's like these
little seaside towns? It's like super like off-white walls. Everything's like super clean. Yep.
Clean, sleek, elegant, like Mac store bullshit. So, and that's an interesting thing too, because there's a lot of art genres like performance art, dancing, even theater, like, or even something like stand-up comedy. It's an art medium that is only happening when it is being performed, unless it is commodified.
Yeah.
Unless you make it into a product somehow. So basically, I think that's just kind of a dog eat dog thing, or kind of a, I don't know, whatever. Like, I think because the art world isn't really created by artists, it's created by people that can successfully sell and market art. And those people can sell paintings. They can't sell a dance performance very well. They totally could if they really actually put the institutional backing towards doing those things.
Yeah, and actually, I think I want to build off both yours and Matt's point.
Yeah.
Because I think part of the way that you have to commodify music in order to successfully sell it, especially now, I think, where like when we have social media, is that you have to make the artist's face part of the brand. And I think that gives music, like, and self-promotion in music, like, much more of an in-your-face quality, because the person literally has to be in your face for people to see it and for people to give a shit. And I think where, like, visual artists or, you know, sculptors or any people like that, they kind of only have to market themselves to curators or, like, any of the people who gatekeep. Whereas, like, in music, it's kind of like everybody's a gatekeeper. They're just gatekeeping different things. So it's like some people are gatekeeping the venues, some people are gatekeeping their time, some people are like gatekeeping the money, whatever. It's like you kind of have to show off to more people.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I think too, like, musicians have more well-known artists to be compared to, like, I don't know, the Beatles or whatever, whereas people who are like, for me, I'm making quilts, so it's like, oh, I'm comparing myself to a great quilt maker or something like that. So it's like almost like you're trying to be those people, think that you're trying to be greater than you are, and it becomes off-putting.
Yeah. And I think also just like a quilt maker saying, it's like, yeah, I like draw from this tradition of quilt making that has like instantly more appeal to this like very niche, very wealthy group of people. Whereas like some random fucking power pop band from Alston saying, hey, we sound like the Beatles, is everybody's just like, yeah, cool story, bro.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting too, because quilt making or fiber art in general, I would argue, is just as prevalent and omnipresent as music is in our society. Like we're all wearing fabric. There's a design behind you, Prateek. Like there's literally fiber art is everywhere, but there is no commodification of fame in fiber art necessarily. Maybe in the right circles, like I could definitely research and find, and maybe not off the top of my head, a famous fiber artist. Like there's fiber art in museums, like it does exist, but you know, there is like a machine in an industry telling all of us as artists every day that we should be famous. Like you should be a famous musician. You should blow up on TikTok. You know what I mean?
I would even go further than that and say it's like you have to blow up on TikTok because otherwise nobody's going to know who you are.
Right. But it absolutely is harder and possible and would be way more difficult to blow up on TikTok as a fiber artist because of our cultural love of fame and music and rock stars and celebrity and the fucking Queen of England and Billie Eilish and you know what I mean? Like we love celebrities.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, and to call back to, I think it was Prateek's point, how with music, we are, as the musician, the face, the head of the dragon to the marketing. Which is brutal because that makes it all live and die by you.
Yeah.
And the success and failure is your fault. And if the axe falls, it falls on you. And your bank, not anyway.
But it fascinates me that a lot of these videos, and Brian, I've seen you do some of this on Instagram and stuff. It's just like, well, this is what I'm making this week or today or, you know, this whatever frame of time. And so you'll see the presentation of it, and it's just, this is my project right now. I'm going to film every step of the process, and then, you know, some artists speed it up to present it on social media or put it on a YouTube video or whatever. And you see every step of it, and it's just like, this is the project manifested as a presentation to the viewer. And whether or not you're like paying to consume what that artist is doing, you are able to see just that it's almost like you get just as much out of watching the process as you do out of consuming the finished product.
Yeah.
Right.
In a way.
Yep.
So I'm watching that going like, well, it's impossible for that to translate literally to when I write a song or when I write an essay. But I'm looking at it like, why aren't I approaching art? Not that I can't, but I don't know how to do this. Why aren't I approaching my art the same way that a maker approaches a project?
Yeah.
Like,
and I think that kind of gets back to like the first thing that Brian said, which is like, you can, but it's the whole thing is just like there are these like very, very narrow preconceptions. Like it really is all socially constructed.
Sure.
But like to kind of talk about like being a musician and approaching like you're sort of approaching like songwriting, like it's kind of the same way that a painter might approach, like, you know, like, hey guys, like watch me paint. There are like some, you know, like DJs, beat makers, etc., who are just like, hey, what's up? I'm going live on Twitch so you can watch me work. I think like the first time that I actually remember seeing something like that was like around like 2010 or something. Like Deadmau5, he might still do this. Deadmau5 had like a live stream on his website where he would just like 24/7, like as long as he was in his studio, you could watch him making songs.
Wow.
And I think it's kind of like Brian was saying, it's like very much a socially constructed thing. Maybe like more fiber artists working out of their apartment could do something like that and people would think it was normal, but Deadmau5 has to be freaking Deadmau5 before people are just like, yeah, I'll totally watch you like click at your computer for like 10 hours.
Well, Owen Korzik interviewed somebody recently who goes by the name Summer Starved, and he was talking about how he goes on Instagram Live and people will watch him make lo-fi beats from scratch, and that sounded like a pretty fascinating process.
Yeah.
So I guess like there are people who do it, and I don't necessarily want to broadcast every step of my songwriting process because a lot of that's it's intimate and private, and like it takes a lot of brain power that would not be possible if everyone were watching, or if I were like conscious of the fact that people would be watching later. So yeah, I don't know, but there's some elements to that, to like the makerspace videos that I've been watching, just in the creative process or just in the presentation process, that I feel I could maybe bring to my art to at least address like workflow issues and stuff like that.
Yeah, one thing that I think that there's a big demand for, and not even just right now, but in general, that is there are probably billions of hobbyists in the world.
Yeah.
Who maybe write a little bit of poetry or play a little guitar or do a little bit of drawing, that don't do it in an extreme, you know, industrious way like we would as artists, who either do it as a job or do it as like an integral like focal point of our lives. Where those people, I think that there are people who really, really benefit and enjoy literally art tips, or they just like to see people making stuff because, you know, it's like there are people that like to do paint by numbers, and that's totally cool and that's fine. And you have a nice little thing. And like, but I think that there's room for that in DIY and just art making in general, where sometimes I see people see me draw something in a video and they're like, oh my God, like I'm going to do that too. And I'm like, yeah, you should, not because I feel like I should have like a monopoly on it or something. It has nothing to do with that kind of thing. And that person probably isn't going to go sell that idea. They want to be able to do it in their own sketchbook. You know what I mean? And like, maybe, I don't know, like maybe there's room for that with music too. And I think the problem with it too, as well, with music making and with video stuff too, is for one, it requires an entirely different trade, which is video production, which is really difficult. And with music production, there's so many more steps. And when I make a painting, I can just take a picture of it with my iPhone. But when you write a full band, big old production, or even just acoustic, it's like the presentation to actually feel the real, like your real artistic vision can be a lot harder with just a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, I know that like just from spending a lot of time on YouTube, there are musicians who do that and do like, here, like, hey, look, it's like, here's like a video diary of how I wrote this song. And they're big YouTubers who have like serious video production and serious audio production setups, things like sometimes even things like sponsorships and whatever. And it can be a lot harder to do that with like just an iPhone and like a basic microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think that there's a big demand. Like, I think people would like it because, like, I was watching on YouTube. I can't remember the YouTuber's name, but I was literally just watching somebody build a little tiny house out of like popsicle sticks and like I don't know, like it was like an hour long, and I watched it like I was like enchanted by this video. And I don't know it. I don't care about model figurine building.
Same.
But like, I just like watching people make shit.
Yeah, my current YouTube fixation is binging with Babish. For anybody who doesn't know it, it's a YouTube cooking show.
The cook
guy.
Yeah.
And it's really fun because the whole thing is he tries to make food from various TV shows and movies, and like the more out there and ridiculous it is, the better.
That's awesome.
So like one of his videos, he like tried to recreate like an entire 7-course meal based only from food in the Lord of the Rings movies.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And it's really cool, and it's really nerdy and detailed. But also it's just fun. Like I do like cooking, and that show has actually inspired me to like try more stuff, like making pan pizza or whatever. But I mostly just watch the show because it's literally just fun to watch, like cool time lapse of him like chopping vegetables while he like explains what he's doing in a very soothing voice.
Yeah,
it's just fun.
Yeah,
watching people make shit is cool, even if you don't make shit.
Yeah, there are people that probably don't give a shit about songwriting that would fucking love to watch some weird video that's like an hour and a half long of somebody writing a song.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna try it out.
That sounds kind of yeah. People would probably really like it.
No, they absolutely would. There is like people really love watching stuff get made.
Yeah.
All the marketing and social construction of like, how do I present myself as a songwriter on you, like who's like, well, I'm going to write a song versus like, hey, I'm going to cook something, watch this. At the end of the day, like people really, even if people don't make that thing, people will probably still love watching how it gets made.
Yeah.
What an exciting thing.
Yeah.
It is.